Hello everybody on the internet, my name is Treebeard Gaming. I want to do a little bit of things to shake it up. I heard that you shouldn't just do one thing on the internet and that gaming was something anyone could do. If you get a decent computer and literally a smartphone, you can make a gaming video. So I thought I'd do something a little bit special and I'd read a book. So like an audiobook, but worse. So if you like that, then you can keep listening. This book does contain minor swearing, and the book is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. We're going to be starting on Chapter 0. Everyone my age remembers where they were and what they were doing when they first heard about the contest. I was sitting in my hideout watching cartoons. A news bulletin broke into my video feed, announcing that James Halliday had died during the night. I'd heard of Halliday, of course. Everyone had. He was the video game designer responsible for creating the Oasis, a massively multiplayer online game that had gradually evolved into the globally networked virtual reality most of humanity now used on a daily basis. The unprecedented success of the Oasis had made Halliday one of the wealthiest people in the world, and at first I couldn't understand why the media was making such a big deal of the billionaire's death. After all, the people of planet Earth had other concerns: the ongoing energy crisis, catastrophic climate change, widespread famine, poverty, and disease, half a dozen wars, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Normally the news feeds interrupt everyone's interactive sitcoms and soap operas unless something really major happened, like the outbreak of some nuclear virus, or another major city vanishing in a mushroom cloud. Big stuff like that. As famous as he was, Holliday's death should have warranted only a brief segment on the evening news so the unwashed masses could shake their heads in envy when the newscasters announced the obscenely large amount of money that would be doled out to the rich man's heirs. That was the rub. James Halliday had no heirs. He died a 67-year-old bachelor with no living relatives and by most accounts without a single friend. He spent the last 15 years of his life in his self-imposed isolation, during which time, the rumors were to be believed, he'd gone completely insane. I need water for this. So the real jaw-dropping news that January morning, the news that had everyone from Toronto to Tokyo crapping their cornflakes, concerned the contents of Halliday's last will and testament, and the fate of his vast fortune. Halliday prepared a short video message along with instructions that it should be released to the world media at the time of his death. He also arranged to have a copy of the video emailed to every single Oasis user that same morning. I still remember hearing the familiar electronic chime when it arrived in my inbox just a few seconds after I saw that first news bulletin. The video message was actually a meticulously constructed short film titled A Norak's Invitation. A famous eccentric, Halliday had harbored a lifelong obsession with the 1980s, the decade during which he had been a teenager. And Norak's Invitation was crammed with obscure 80s pop culture references, nearly all of which were lost to me the first time I viewed it. That video was just over 5 minutes in length, and in the days and weeks that followed, it would become the most scrutinized piece of film in history, surpassing even the Zapruder film in the amount of painstaking frame-by-frame analysis devoted to it. My entire generation would come to know every second of Halliday's message by heart. Norak's Invitation begins with the sound of trumpets, the opening of an old song called Dead Man's Party. The song plays over a dark screen for the first few seconds until trumpets are joined by a guitar. That's when Halliday appears, but he's not a 67-year-old man ravaged by time and illness. Looks just as he did on the cover of Time magazine back in 2014. A tall, thin, healthy man in his early 40s, with unkempt hair and his trademark horn-rimmed glasses. He's also wearing the same clothing he wore in the Time cover photo, faded jeans and a vintage Space Invaders t-shirt. Halliday is at a high school dance being held in a large gymnasium. He's surrounded by teenagers whose clothing, hairstyle, and dance moves all indicate that the time period is the late 1980s. Halliday is dancing too, something no one ever saw him do in real life. Grinning maniacally, he spins in rapid circles, swinging his arms and head in time with the song, flawlessly, cycling through several signature 80s dance moves, but Halliday had no dance partner. He is, as the saying goes, dancing with himself. A few lines of text appear briefly at the lower left-hand corner of the screen, listing the name of the band, the song's title, the record label, and the year of release, as if this were an old music video airing on MTV. Oingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party, MCA Records, 1985. The lyrics kick in. Halliday begins to lip sync along, still gyrating. All dressed up, nowhere to go, walking with a dead man over my shoulder. Don't run away, it's only me. Probably stops dancing and makes a cutting motion with his right hand, silencing the music. At the same moment, the dancers in the gymnasium behind him vanish, and the scene around him suddenly changes. Halliday now stands at the front of a funeral parlor next to an open casket. A second, much older Halliday lies inside. Casket, his body emaciated and ravaged by cancer. Shiny quarters cover each of his eyelids. The younger Halliday gazes down at the corpse of his older self with mock sadness, then turns to address the assembled mourners. Halliday snaps his fingers and a scroll appears in his right hand. Into the flourish and it falls to the floor, unraveling down to the aisle in front of him. He breaks the fourth wall, adjusting the viewer begins to read. I, James Donovan Halliday, being of sound mind and disposing memory, do hereby make, publish, and declare this instrument to be my last will and testament. Hereby revoking any and all wills and codicils by me at any time heretofore made. He continues reading faster and faster, plowing through several more paragraphs of legalese until he's speaking so rapidly that the words are unintelligible. Then he stops abruptly. Forget it, he says. Even with the speed, it would take me a month to read the whole thing. Sad to say, I don't have that kind of time. After the scroll vanishes in a shower of gold dust. Let me just give you the highlights. The funeral parlor vanishes and the scene changes once again. Halliday now stands in front of an immense bank. Vault door. My entire estate, including a controlling share of stock in my company, Gregorius Simulation Systems, is to be placed in escrow until such as a single condition I have set forth my will is met. The first individual to meet that condition will inherit my entire fortune, currently valued in excess of $240 billion. The vault door swings open and Halliday walks inside. The interior of the vault is enormous and contains a huge stack of gold bars, roughly the size of a large house. Here's the dough I'm putting up for grabs, Halliday says, grinning broadly. What the hell, you can't take it with you, right? Halliday leans against the stack of gold bars, and the camera pulls in tight on his face. Now I'm sure you're wondering, what do you have to do to get your hands on all this moolah? Well, hold your horses, kids. I'm getting to that. He pauses dramatically, expression changed to that of a child, about to reveal a very big secret. Halliday snaps his fingers again, the vault disappears. In the same instant, Halliday shrinks and morphs into a small boy wearing brown corduroys and a faded The Muppet Show t-shirt. Young Halliday stands in a cluttered living room with the burnt orange carpeting, wood-paneled walls, and kitschy late 70s decor. A 21-inch Zenith television sits nearby with an Atari 2600 game console hooked up to it. This was the first video game system I ever owned, Halliday says now in a child's voice. An Atari 2600. I got it for Christmas in 1979. Plops down from the Atari, picks up a joystick, and moves to play. My favorite game was this one, he says, nodding at this TV screen where small squares, jogging through a series of simple mazes. It was called Adventure. Like many early video games, Adventure was designed and programmed by just one person. But back then, Atari refused to give its programmers credit for their work, so the name of a game's creator didn't actually appear anywhere on the packaging. On the TV screen, we see Halliday use a sword to slay a red dragon. Although due to the game's crude, low-resolution graphics, it looks more like a square using an arrow to stab a deformed duck. The guy who created Adventure, a man named Warren Robinette, decided to hide his name inside the game itself. He had a key in one of the game's labyrinths. If you found this key, a small pixel-sized gray dot, you could use it to enter a secret room where Robinette had hidden his name. On TV, Halliday had guided a square protagonist into the game's secret room where the words created by Warren Robinette appear in the center of the screen. This, Halliday says, pointing to the screen with genuine reverence, was the very first video game Easter egg. Robinette hid in the game's code without telling a soul. And Atari manufactured and shipped Adventure all over the world without knowing about the secret room. Didn't find out about the Easter egg's existence until a few months later when kids all over the world began to discover it. I was one of those kids, and finding Robinette's Easter egg for the first time was one of the coolest video game experiences of my life. The young Halliday drops his joystick and stands as he does. As he does, the living room fades away and the scene shifts again. Halliday now stands in a dim cavern where light from unseen torches flickers off the damp walls. In the same instant, Halliday's appearance also changes once again as he morphs into his famous Oasis avatar Norak, a tall robed wizard with a slightly more handsome version of the adult Halliday's face. Minus the eyeglasses. Norak is dressed in his trademark black robes with the avatar's emblem, a large calligraphic letter A embroidered on each sleeve. Before I died, Norak says, speaking in a much deeper voice, I created my own Easter egg and hid it somewhere inside my most popular video game, the Oasis. The first person to find my Easter egg will inherit my entire fortune. Another dramatic pause. The egg is well hidden. I didn't just leave it lying under a rock somewhere. I suppose you could say that it's locked inside a safe that is buried in a secret room that lies hidden at the center of a maze located somewhere just up to Tapestry Temple up here. But don't worry, I've left a few clues lying around to get everyone started. And here's the first one. Norak makes a grand gesture with his right hand. 3 keys appear, spinning slowly in the air in front of him. They appear made of copper, jade, and clear crystal. The keys continue to spin. Norak recites a piece of verse. As he speaks, each line appears briefly in flaming subtitles across the bottom of the screen. 3 hidden keys open 3 secret gates, wherein the errant will be tested for worthy traits. And those with the skill to survive these traits will reach the end where the prize awaits. As he finishes, the jade and crystal keys vanish, leaving only the copper key, which now hangs on a chain around Anorak's neck. The camera follows Anorak as he turns and continues farther into the dark cavern. A few seconds later, he arrives at a pair of massive wooden doors set into the cavern's rocky wall. These doors are banded with steel, and there are shields and dragons carved into the surface. I couldn't playtest this particular game, so I worry they may have hidden my Easter egg a little too well, made it too difficult to reach. I'm not sure if that's the case. It's too late to change anything now, so I guess we'll see. Anorak throws open the double doors, revealing an immense treasure room filled with piles of glittering gold coins and jewel-encrusted goblets. And then he steps into the open doorway and turns to face the viewer, stretching out his arms to hold the giant double doors. So without further ado, Anorak announces, "Let the hunt for Holiday's Easter egg begin." Then he vanishes in a flash of light, leaving the viewer to gaze through the open doorway, glittering mounds of treasure that lay beyond, and the screen fades to black. At the end of the video, Holiday included a link to his personal website, which had changed drastically on the morning of his death. For over a decade, the only thing posted there had been a short looping animation that showed his avatar Anorak sitting in a medieval library hunched over scarred mixing scarred work table, mixing potions and poring over dusty spellbooks with a large painting of a black dragon visible on the wall behind him. Now that animation was gone, its place was a high score list like those that used to appear in old coin-operated video games. It's that 10-numbered spot used to play the initials JDH, James Donovan Halliday, followed by a score of 6 zeros. The high score list quickly became known as the scoreboard. The scoreboard was an icon that looked like a small leather-bound book, which linked to a free downloadable copy of Norak's Almanac. A collection of hundreds of Holiday's undated journal entries. The almanac was over 1,000 pages long, but it contained few details about Holiday's personal life or his daily activities. Most of the entries were a stream of consciousness. Observations on various classic video games, science fiction, fantasy novels, movies, comic books, and 80s pop culture. Mixed with humorous diatribes announcing everything from organized religion to diet soda. The hunt is the contest. The hunt as the contest came to be quickly known, wove its way into global culture, like winning the lottery. Finding Holiday's Easter egg became a popular fantasy among adults and children alike. It was a game anyone could play, and at first there seemed to be no right or wrong way to play it. The only thing on Norak's Almanac seemed to indicate was that a familiarity with Holiday's various obsessions would be essential to finding the egg. This led to a global fascination with 1980s pop culture. 50 years after the decade had ended, the movies, music, games, and fashions of the 1980s were all the rage once again. By 2041, spiked hair and acid-washed jeans were back in style. Covers of hit 80s pop songs by contemporary bands dominated music charts. People who had actually been teenagers in the 1980s, on approaching old age, had the strange experience of seeing the fads and fashions of their youth embraced and studied by their grandchildren. A new subculture was born, composed of the millions of people who now devoted every free moment of their lives to searching for Holiday's egg. First, these individuals were known as egg hunters, but this quickly truncated, I don't know how to say that, the nickname Gunters. During the first year of the hunt, being a Gunter was highly fashionable, and nearly every Oasis user claimed to be one. When the first anniversary of Holiday's death arrived, the first finding contests began to die down. An entire year had passed and no one had found anything, not a single key or gate. The problem was the sheer size of the Oasis. It contained thousands of simulated worlds where the keys might be hidden, and it could take a Gunter years to conduct a thorough search of any one of them. Despite all the professional Gunters who boasted on their blogs that they were getting closer to a breakthrough every day, the truth gradually became apparent. No one really even knew exactly what it was they were looking for, or where to start looking for it. Another year passed, and another. Still nothing. The general public lost all interest in the contest. People began to assume it was all just an outlandish hoax perpetuated by a rich nut job. Others believed that even if the egg really did exist, no one was ever going to find it. Meanwhile, the Oasis continued to evolve and grow in popularity, protected from takeover attempts and legal challenges by the ironclad terms of Holiday's will and the army of rabid lawyers he had tasked with administrating his estate. Holiday's Easter egg gradually moved into the realm of urban legend. The ever-dwindling tribe of Gunters gradually became the object of ridicule. Each year on the anniversary of Holiday's death, newscasters jokingly reported on their continued lack of progress, and each year more Gunters called it quits. When the Holiday indeed made the egg impossible to find, another year went by, and another. Then, on the evening of February 11th, 2045, an advertised name appeared at the top of the scoreboard for the whole world to see. After 5 long years, the copper key had finally been found. About an 18-year-old kid living in a trailer park on the outskirts of Oklahoma City. The kid was me. Dozens of books, cartoons, movies, and miniseries have attempted to tell the story of everything that happened next. Every single one of them got it wrong, so I want to set the record straight once and for all. Careful not to scene of illegal teenagers behind holiday are actually extras from various John Hughes teen films with Scott and Face and blah 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 blah. This isn't important to the actual story itself. Skipping that. Level 1. Being human totally sucks most of the time. Video games are the only thing that make life bearable. Mark's Almanac, Chapter 91, verses 1 through 2. Chapter 1. I'm only going to read part of this one. Right. I was jolted awake by the sound of gunfire in one of the neighboring stacks. The shots were followed by a few minutes of muffled shouting, screaming, then silence. Gunfire wasn't uncommon in the stacks, but it still shook me up. I knew I probably wouldn't be able to fall back to sleep, so I decided to kill the remaining hours until dawn by brushing up on a few coin-op classics: Galaga, Defender, Asteroids. The games were outdated digital dinosaurs that had become amusement pieces long before I was born. But I was a gunter, so I didn't think of them as quaint, low-res antiques. To me, they were hollowed artifacts, pillars of the pantheon. When I played the classics, I did so with a determined sort of reverence. Curled up on an old sleeping bag. God. The corner of the trailer's tiny laundry room, wedged into the gap between the wall and the dryer. I wasn't welcome in my aunt's room across the hall. It was fine by me. I preferred to crash in the laundry room anyways. It was warm and afforded me a limited amount of privacy, and the wireless reception wasn't too bad. As an added bonus, the room smelled like liquid detergent and fabric softener. The rest of the trailer reeked of cat piss and abject poverty. Most of the time I slept in my hideout, but the temperature dropped below zero the past few nights. As much as I hated staying in my aunt's place, it beat freezing to death. A total of 15 people lived in my aunt's trailer. We slept in the smallest of its 3 bedrooms. The Deeparts lived in the bedroom adjacent to hers, and Liz occupied the large master bedroom at the end of the hall. There were 6 of them. They paid the largest share of the rent. Our trailer wasn't as crowded as some of the others. Those units in the stacks. It was a double wide, plenty of room for everybody. I pulled out my laptop and powered on. It was bulky, heavy beast. Almost 10 years old. I found a trash bin behind the abandoned strip mall across the highway. I'd been able to coax it back to life by replacing its system memory and reloading the Stone Age operating system. Processor was slower than a sloth by current standards, but it was fine for my needs. Laptop served as my portable research library, video arcade, and home theater system. Its hard drive was filled with old books, movies, TV show episodes, song files, and nearly every video game made in the 20th century. I booted my emulator and selected Robotron 2084, one of my all-time favorite games. I always loved its frenetic pace and brutal simplicity. Robotron was all about instinct and reflexes. Playing old video games never failed to clear my mind and set me at ease. If I was feeling depressed or frustrated about my lot in life, all I had to do was tap the player 1 button, my worries would instantly slip away. So my mind focused itself on the relentless pixelated onslaught on the screen in front of me. There inside the game's two-dimensional universe, life was simple. It was just you against the machine. Move with your left hand, shoot with your right, and try to stay alive as long as possible. I spent a few hours blasting through wave after wave of brains, spheroids, quarks, and hulks in my unending battle to save the last human family. That's when my fingers started to cramp up and I began to lose my rhythm. When that happened at this level, things deteriorated quickly. I broke through all my extra lives in a matter of minutes, and my 2 least favorite words appeared on the screen. Game over. I shut down the emulator and began to browse through my video files. So the past 5 years, I downloaded every single movie, TV show, and cartoon mentioned in Mark's Almanac. I still haven't watched all of them yet, or, of course, that would probably take decades. I selected an episode of Family Ties, an 80s sitcom about a middle-class family living in central Ohio. I downloaded the show because it had been one of Halliday's favorites, and I figured there was a chance that some clue related to the hunt might be hidden in one of the episodes. I got addicted to the show immediately and had to know I had now watched all 108 episodes multiple times. I never seemed to get tired of them. Sitting alone in the dark watching the show on my laptop, I always found myself imagining that I lived in that warm mullet house, and that those smiling, understanding people in my family, there's nothing so wrong in the world that we couldn't sort it out by the end of a single half-hour episode, or maybe a 2-part of something really serious. My own home life had never been remotely resembled the one depicted in Family Ties, which is probably why I love the show so much. It's own child of 2 teenagers, both refugees who had met in the stacks where I'd grown up. I remember my father when I was just a few months old. He was shot dead while looting a grocery store during a power blackout. The only thing I really knew about him was that he loved comic books. I'd found several old flash drives and a box of his things containing complete runs of the Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men, and Green Lantern. My mom once told me my dad gave me an alliterative name, Wade Watts, because he thought it sounded like the secret identity of a superhero, like Peter Parker or Clark Kent. Yeah, God. Give me a second. Knowing that made me think he must have been a cool guy despite how he died. Wait, I think I did that. My mother, Loretta, had raised me on her own. We lived in a small RV in another part of the stacks. She had two full-time waitress jobs. One was a telemarketer, the other was an escort in an online brothel. She used to make me wear earplugs at night so I wouldn't hear her in the next room talking dirty tricks in other time zones, but the earplugs didn't work very well, so I would watch old movies instead of the volume turned way up. I was introduced to the Oasis at an early age because my mother used it as a virtual babysitter. As soon as I was old enough to wear a visor and a pair of haptic gloves, my mom helped me create my first Oasis avatar. Then she stuck me in a corner and went back to work, leaving me to explore an entirely new world, different from the one I'd known up until then. That moment on, I was more or less raised by the Oasis interactive educational program, which any kid could access for free. I spent a big chunk of my childhood hanging out in a virtual reality simulation of Sesame Street, singing songs with friendly Muppets, and playing interactive games that taught me how to walk, talk, add, subtract, read, write, and share. So I mastered those skills. It didn't take me long to discover that the Oasis, or even a penniless kid like me, had access to every book ever written, every song ever recorded, and every movie, television show, video game, and piece of artwork ever created. Looked at knowledge, art, and amusements of all human civilization were there, waiting for me, but yes, with all that information turned out to be something of a mixed blessing, because that was when I found out the truth. I don't know, maybe your experience was different from mine. For me, growing up as a human being on planet Earth in the 21st century was a real kick in the teeth, existentially speaking. The worst thing about being a kid was that no one told me the truth of my situation. In fact, they did the exact opposite. And of course I believed them because I was just a kid and I didn't know any better. I mean, Christ, my brain hadn't even grown to full size yet. How could I be expected to know when the adults were bullshitting me? So I swallowed all the dark ages nonsense they fed me. Sometime passed, I grew up a little, and I gradually began to figure out that pretty much everyone had been lying to me about pretty much everything since the moment I emerged from my mother's womb. This was an alarming revelation. To me. It gave me trust issues later in life. I started to figure out the ugly truth as soon as I began to explore the free Oasis libraries. Facts were right there waiting for me, hidden in old books written by people who weren't afraid to be honest. Artists and scientists, philosophers and poets. Many of them long dead. As I read the words they'd left behind, I finally began to get grips on the situation. My situation. Our situation. Most people refer to it as the human condition. It was not good news. Someone just told me the truth right up front as soon as I was old enough to understand it. Someone just said, here's the deal, Wade. You're something called a human being. That's a really smart kind of animal. Like every other animal on this planet was sent from a single-celled organism that lived millions of years ago. Happened by a process called evolution. You'll learn more about it later, but trust me, that's really how we all got here. There's proof of it everywhere buried in the rocks. That's that story you heard about how we're all created by a super powerful dude named God who lives up in the sky. Total bullshit. The whole God thing is actually an ancient fairy tale that people have been telling one another for thousands of years. We made it all up, like Santa Claus and Easter Bunny. Oh, by the way, there's no Santa Claus or Easter Bunny. Also bullshit. Sorry, kid. Deal with it. We're wondering what happened before you got here. An awful lot of stuff, actually. Once we evolved into humans, things are pretty interesting. We figured out how to grow food and domesticate animals. So we didn't have to spend all our time hunting. Our tribes got much bigger, and we spread across the entire planet like an unstoppable virus. Then, after fighting a bunch of wars with each other over land resources and our made-up gods, we eventually got all of our tribes organized into a global civilization. But honestly, it wasn't all that organized or civilized. And we continued to fight a lot of wars with each other. We also figured out how to do science to help us develop technology for a bunch of hairless apes. We've actually managed to invent some pretty incredible things: computers, medicine, lasers, microwaves, ovens, artificial hearts, atomic bombs. We even sent a few guys to the moon and brought them back. We also created global communications network that lets us all talk to each other all around the world all the time. Pretty impressive, right? But that's where bad news comes, and our global civilization came at a huge cost. We needed a whole bunch of energy to build it. We got that energy by burning fossil fuels, which came from dead plants and animals buried deep in the underground. We used up most of the fuel before you got here, and now it's pretty much all gone. This means that we no longer have enough energy to keep our civilization running like it was before, so we had to cut back big time. We call this the global energy crisis. It's been going on for a while now. Also turns out burning all of that bed shaking for some reason. All the fossil fuels had some nasty side effects like raising temperature of our planets, screwing up the environment. Now polar ice caps are melting, sea levels are rising, the weather's all messed up. Plants and animals are dying off in record numbers, and lots of people are starving and homeless, and we're still fighting wars with each other, mostly over the few resources we have left. This as well means that life is a lot different than it used to be back in the good old days. Back before you were born, things used to be awesome. Now they're kind of terrifying to us. It doesn't look too bright. You're born at a pretty crappy time in history, and it looks like things are only going to get worse from here on out. Human civilization is in decline. People say it's collapsing. Probably wondering what's going to happen to you. That's easy. Something is going to happen to you that happened to every other human being who has ever lived. You're going to die. We all die. That's just how it is. After you die? Well, we're not completely sure, but the evidence seems to suggest that nothing happens. You're just dead. Brain stops working, and you're not around to ask annoying questions anymore. The stories you heard about going to a wonderful place called heaven, where there is no more pain or death, live in a state of perpetual happiness, also total bullshit. So go like God stuff. There's no evidence of a heaven. There never was. We made that story up too. Wishful thinking. You have to live the rest of your life knowing you're going to die someday and disappear forever. Sorry. Alright. That's where I'm going to leave this episode off here. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you want more, please tell me.